Hey, Dark Force, there's no place for you to hide. Interdimensional meditation warriors are coming for you. Come be part of the army every Wednesday and Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Question your reality, then change it. Welcome to the ThunderWizard YouTube channel, the gathering place for all 5D star seeds and light workers. All right, a few things I want to talk to you about in this video. I do want to talk to you about a very interesting concept that has come to my attention over the past couple of days about how humanity is going to come together in a way which will destroy the ability of the evil dark forces to control you. Before we do that, I'm going to do something I'm not at all comfortable doing. So if you've been following my channel, you know that it is my personal belief that I am in regular communications with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. Not just extraterrestrials, but higher dimensional beings means a heck of a lot more than that. But extraterrestrials, the ones that are coming to Earth, happen to be higher dimensional beings, but there are all different kinds. Anyway, as you know, it is my belief that I am in contact with them and have been in regular telepathic contact with them for a little over 2 years now. So over those 2 years, they've told me things, or the truth is that I have interpreted what I experience as being energetic telepathic messages. I've interpreted these messages, because if the one thing that's different from what the channelers do, and let me just be clear, I'm not a channeler, I'm not a psychic, I'm not a prophet, I'm just a normal human like the rest of you. And I believe that most people can have the same kind of experience that I have if you put the effort into it that I did. All right, so I'm not a channeler. So the difference between this and channeling is that channeling assumes that there's an entity or group of entities that come and take over your body and speak through you. It has this idea that it's like being a prophet and you're speaking the exact words of some other mind, and I find it kind of silly, even though I like, what's the one guy, Bashar. I like Bashar's basic message. I don't agree with a lot of it. I don't believe that he's channeling a specific extraterrestrial. I think it's theater, but I also believe that doesn't mean he isn't picking up on some truths, and it doesn't mean that there aren't higher dimensional beings that are helping him to come to these awarenesses. But the whole, he doesn't do it as much now, but in the beginning he used to do that weird accent, and that was a thing, by the way. When he started doing that, that was a thing. There were other people who were supposedly channeling spirits and beings, and they would all have these really bad accents, these really bad pseudo non-specific foreign accents. Anyway, but what's different about actually communicating with higher dimensional beings is that they don't do that. They talk to you directly. They don't take over your nervous system and speak through you. At least in my case, that's not something they do. I wouldn't let them do that if they wanted to do that. I'm not gonna let somebody take over my body. I won't do that. But what ends up happening is that you end up having this experience where you get hit with very powerful energies that are not part of your reality. So your body feels like you're getting hit with a very, very powerful alien energy, meaning it's not normal, not alien in the sense of ET, but alien in the sense of different. That's what alien means. It's coming from some other dimension. And it feels like it's coming from some other dimension. But in order to interpret the message, you have to participate in it. You have to participate in the message, which means that you have to allow your imagination to interpret it. So the end result is it feels like you're fantasizing, feels like you're having a fantasy. And yet at the same time, there's this feeling that it's not coming from you at all. So when you get the message, there is a real feeling of, did I just make that up? Having said that, I've been doing it long enough that I also know that if you go into it and you have a strong emotional agenda about something, you can convince yourself you've gotten a message that you didn't get. That's happened a few times. I can think of a handful of messages that I was absolutely certain that I was told something, that I wanted to happen was going to happen, and they didn't. And so, the only conclusion is that, well, that was I was conflating my delusion with whatever energy I was feeling at the time. So, anyway, that's just a way for me to avoid what I believe I just got told. And I've double-checked this. I absolutely rebelled against this. I did not like it. And when you hear it, you'll understand why I didn't like it. But usually in the past, when I've gotten messages that I don't like, they usually end up being true. Some of them, I was told that I was going to be kicked out of Australia, and I didn't like that message, so I told myself that I didn't hear that. I made that up. That's just my fear. And sure enough, within a couple of weeks, I got kicked out of Australia. And I had something come up recently where I ended up walking away from a decades-long relationship with a teacher of mine. And just before that happened, the message I got was, you're going to have to make a painful choice. And that sounded weird, and I didn't like it. I didn't know what it meant. And then after the experience, I went, oh, that's what that was. So there have been other experiences like that as well that I don't understand what it means. I'm dealing with my mind using modern human English language words, and it might mean something more than that or slightly different than that. In any case, the message that I got was that I'm going to be attacked. And I absolutely, responded negatively to that. And then that turned into, my reputation is going to be attacked online. Now, again, at this point, I don't know what that means. And then what I perceived as other messages, as I'm screaming, and absolutely rebelling against it, getting other messages like, we're going to help you through this, and it's going to end up catapulting your reputation, your career, your channel. I'm not banking on any of that. That was an after feeling. And again, there have been times when I've gotten messages, and then I've gotten subsequent messages that turned out to be my insides, responding to that. So This is an experiment because, to my knowledge, I just checked. I mean, I'm fine. My channel is fine. I'm not aware of anybody out there bad-mouthing me. I've been attacked a lot. My reputation gets attacked all the time. And, you know, that should be understandable, the crazy stuff that I talk about. So I'm just letting you guys know about it, because if it does happen, this will be an interesting test. This will be an interesting test because we'll find out whether or not I am interpreting these experiences correctly. Because it'll be very clear, apparently. I'm going to put the effort into not worrying about it because, as you know, the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, which is my book, which you can get at michaelwilliamdenny.com, most important book you can get from me, that says that if I'm following my soul desire and I am fearlessly acting towards what gives me the greatest joy, that the universe must provide me with all of the resources I need to continue to fulfill that. So we'll see what happens. So again, this is an experiment. And this is also to let you know that I have no attachment to any of this. Even though I've been talking about solar flash event, even though I've been talking about this shift to 5D, and you know, all the stuff that turns out is happening. I mean, just look at what's happening in the world right now. This is Tuesday, July 23rd. Look at all the intense stuff that is going on in the world. And I haven't predicted specifically these specific things, but generally speaking, myself and other people have said, watch out, 2024 is when everything gets flipped on its head. It's going to be very dynamic. It's very clear that it's only going to continue. And even if you just focus on what's happening politically in the United States, you know, the things that have never happened in the history of the United States are happening with the election process and with, you know, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, point is, let's see what happens. So if something comes up where the channel reputation gets attacked or I get attacked, my reputation, yeah, come to my aid and show me some support. But I'm perfectly happy if nothing comes. If nothing happens, I will be the happiest person in the world to be wrong. And I have no interest in being a prophet or a channeler or a psychic. And I'm perfectly happy with the idea of being completely mistaken and deluded and paranoid. All right, so I got that out of the way. Next thing I want to talk about is I had this awareness about how humans are going to be able to overthrow the evil dark forces that are controlling our world, our thoughts, you know, all the stuff that I can't talk about on YouTube, but you can guess. And it has to do with a chemical that was being touted as this magical, miraculous healing chemical. And thankfully, it has been completely debunked by the FDA. And it has nothing to do with what happened over the past 3 years. It's something completely different. So the FDA has debunked this as a poisonous chemical. I'm not even going to mention what it is, because again, I like having my channel stay on YouTube. But people were touting this chemical as being something that cured everything that you could possibly imagine. Among many of them was cancer. Now, of course, again, I'm telling you, the FDA has completely debunked this. This chemical does not cure anything. In fact, it's toxic, according to the FDA. But I'm telling you the theories behind what people were saying about it. And first, what people were saying was that it oxygenates the blood. And so the added oxygen in the blood does all kinds of good things to the cell, to the mitochondria, and, cleans out the blood. And apparently the oxygenation of the blood kills. Again, the theory was, that's been debunked, that supposedly the oxygenation of the blood killed parasites and virus and bacteria. Again, completely debunked. But then later, and all this was again happening in third world countries. There was no medical testing. There was no peer-reviewed scientific testing of this. It's all people's either anecdotal experiences or made-up stories or lies, according to the FDA. But one of the people making all these claims started to talk about how what this chemical did was it did more than oxygenate the blood. That what it did was it allowed the cells of the body to communicate with each other more effectively by somehow unifying the electromagnetic communication within the body. And therefore it did all kinds of, healed everything, including cancer. Now, I am not a doctor. I know nothing about how to treat cancer from a medical perspective. So bear in mind what I'm saying now is purely just my fantasy based on what these people have said. And I want you to look at it from that perspective. It's purely a fantasy of mine. So the idea of the cells of the body communicating with each other more effectively from an electromagnetic standpoint really caught my attention. And the idea that this now completely debunked toxic chemical, that somehow the way that it cured cancer was allowing the cells of the body to communicate more effectively. I found that fantasy, which of course is that's exactly what it is. I found that fantasy to be very interesting. Now, from a shamanic perspective, which again has nothing to do with medicine or healing, and again, if you have any physical illness, please go to a qualified medical practitioner, a qualified physician, a doctor. What I'm talking about now is just purely shamanic theory. So from a shamanic perspective, disease is the body being imbalanced, which would include the idea that the cells of the body are conscious and they are not communicating with each other. So from a shamanic perspective, the idea is that when your body is connected to the life force conscious energy of the universe, and that the cells of your body are communicating with themselves and with nature, with your soul, then the body will balance itself and you will have balance, you will have health. So the idea is when you're healing from a shamanic perspective, you seek to find the imbalance. If you can find the emotional or psychological cause of that imbalance, then that's what you go after. And there are many ways of doing it. There's prayer, there's ritual, there's mantra, and some shamans will go into shamanic meditation and they will go and seek to talk to the damaged part or cast out the evil cast out the demons even, or cast out the spiritual parasite that's causing it, or in some cases to go find the lost soul and bring it back into the body. And this all has, when you look at all of this all has the idea of this unity of balanced communication within the body. So when I heard this, completely debunked nonsense about this toxic chemical, which the FDA has debunked as poison. But the theory behind it was that if you ingested it, that the cells of the body electromagnetically it would increase the communication, which would then heal the body of all of these dysfunctions. I started thinking about that in terms of this 5D shift that's coming. And, as I said, many times, as I've said, the only way that a narcissistic abuser can get you, can control you, get you to do things you wouldn't normally do, is by you giving them permission to do that. And the truth of the matter is that the evil dark forces that are running this world can only do so because we humans give them permission. Now, we may do it out of fear, but we still give them permission, or out of a desire to be accepted by the majority. So, within cults, for instance, a cult will be run by a narcissistic, abusive leader. And the way that narcissistic, abusive leader keeps things going the way they want is by having the majority of people be bonded to them, to the leader. So that if the leader tells them, this is what we believe, this is what you do, don't do this, do this, even if it's completely, totally not, nonsensical. If the majority of the people who want the approval and the love, or, whatever the leader represents, God's love or whatever, they will believe and choose to act in ways that are completely irrational. And they will guilt and attack and belittle the minority that may want to, rebel against that idea. So this is how the dark forces are ruling the world. The truth is that the majority of people in the world, if they knew what was going on, would absolutely refuse to be a part of it unless they were afraid. And the people, the administrators of that, they know what's going on. They oftentimes know it's wrong, but they're blackmailed. If they come out and expose the lies, they might be physically killed, their family might be hurt, the reputation might be hurt, or just the belief that they won't be loved and accepted sometimes is enough. But that's how these narcissists keep their power. And as I was thinking about that, in light of how this now defunct chemical supposedly worked, was that it did the exact same thing that, shamanically speaking, cancer does to the body. So again, this isn't from a medical perspective, this is from a shamanic philosophical perspective. That cancer in the body is the result of the cells of that part of the body isolating themselves from the rest of the body. And so cutting off their ability to communicate with the rest of the cells, which means getting energy and nutrients. And so they isolate themselves, and therefore they start to then turn into this ugly cancer. Now, from a personal perspective, again, this isn't backed by any research or medical peer-reviewed testing or anything like that. My personal experience is that everybody that I've known that has had cancer, those that have survived and those that haven't, every single one of them had some deep, dark secret within them. Whether it was something that they actually did that they didn't want anybody to know about, or it was just the feeling that they weren't good, that they weren't lovable. They either were very depressed, they had tremendous self-hatred, tremendous guilt, or tremendous anger. But in any case, however you look at it, there was an absolute huge effort to isolate that feeling and isolate themselves from other people. And so they had feelings deep inside that either they weren't able to share, or they had so much shame about their own existence that they would isolate themselves. But at the very least, there was this feeling that they were isolated and alone and unloved. And that is exactly on a we're talking about, on a macro scale, the exact same thing that happens internally in the body. Now, what ends up happening is that one isolated area, whether it's the lungs or the breast or whatever it is, there's one part where that isolated part doesn't get the nutrients and doesn't communicate with the rest of the cells, and it's usually associated with an emotional thing within the human being. And different parts of the body have different, like breast cancer, for example, is about receiving love. Somebody gets breast cancer, I guarantee you, if you sit down and talk with them, you will find out that they don't feel loved, and they unconsciously won't allow themselves to be loved, which is what? Isolating themselves. And the breast is all about that, giving love and receiving love. So that's symbolic. Wherever else it happens, in the body, it has to do with whatever that part of the body represents psychologically. And it means that person has shame, anger, fear, and they isolate that feeling, and it goes to the part of the body that symbolizes that. So in my experience, and again, this is just my experience, it's anecdotal, has nothing to do with actual, medicine. The cause of cancer is isolation. The feeling of isolation and shame, feeling unworthy and unlovable and rejected, and of course with that oftentimes comes anger. That's what I've seen. So I started thinking about this now defunct chemical, but the idea behind it, that what it would do is increase the electromagnetic communication of the cells consciously communicating with each other and creating a balance. And I started thinking that's what's going to happen when we get to this 5D shift. That people will start to move out of the isolation. Remember what happened over the past 4 years. What is it that had never happened in the history of the world? A worldwide mandated isolation. People couldn't leave their homes. What did that create? And then not only that, but then you saw a massive, just huge out of nowhere shift where social media was being censored, and people weren't allowed to communicate their true thoughts and feelings to other people via social media. They could only talk about things that they were allowed to do. Just like right now, there's a lot of things I'm not talking about. I'm not allowed to. I'm being censored from doing so. So that causes what? It causes dis-ease. It causes imbalance. So the way for human beings to shift out of that is to seek to get rid of the isolation, to have communication, like free communication with each other, electromagnetically, energetically, spiritually connecting with each other, and refusing to allow the dark force, narcissistic, evil empire to get in there and try and isolate you and prevent you from communicating. And I mean that on every level. We're also isolated spiritually. One of the things that I've come to find out through my interdimensional meditation is that outside of the third dimension, outside of Earth, all conscious beings are connected consciously and communicate with each other on a spiritual level. So, it's really hard for humans. We have to really train ourselves to meditate and, interdimensional meditation. We're doing something we're not, that we're not trained to do. But out there, they all do that. It's just normal. It's normal for all conscious civilizations to be able to have telepathic communication with every other conscious being if they choose. They can travel the universe and go to other planets and visit other planets. In fact, if you go in your astral body to other planets, they will see you. Like if you go into a deep shamanic trance and you go in your astral body to another civilization, millions of light years away, your physical body won't be there, but when your astral body shows up, the physical beings walking around will go, "Oh, hey, look at that. It's a visitor from another planet." And they'll say, "Hi, how can we help you? Here, come and talk to us." They can see you. They can talk to you. They can interact with you. And that, again, is the symbol of the cells of the body electromagnetically communicating with each other, which creates healing. So when it comes to the things that we're told to do, like the things that we were mandated to do over the past few years, and if you didn't do it, you couldn't work, you couldn't travel, all kinds of those horrible, you couldn't leave your house. If people refused to do that, there was nothing that the dark force psychopaths could have done to make it happen. They don't have enough forces. It's only when we buy into the groupthink, and it's only when we choose to do what they're telling us that they can then have enough influence, where then the outliers, the minorities, when they refuse, then those people can be tracked down and eliminated or put into prison or whatever. But if not even the majority, imagine, if it came to, by the way, I just paid my taxes, just to let you know. I just paid my federal taxes not too long ago. But if 15%, 20% of the United States population said, "I'm not paying my taxes," what are they going to do? Are they going to arrest all those millions of people? Are they going to cut all those millions of people off from their money? They don't have the resources to do that. Imagine what would happen if 30%, 40%, 50% of the population said, "I'm not paying taxes." Imagine what would happen. They wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So that can be true for everything that we know is wrong, that we're being told to do that is wrong. If we don't buy into it, if we refuse to give our power, our actions, our beliefs to the narcissistic psychopaths, there is nothing they can do. They don't have enough power to control everybody. Not even, a quarter of the population. Because then if let's say 25% of people, and I could be much less than that, but say 25% of people said, I'm not paying taxes, then, pretty soon it's going to be 30% because people go, well, if they're not paying it, I'm not paying it. And then it's going to be 40% and pretty soon it's going to get wiped out. By the way, in case you don't know, taxes are a recent thing in the United States. There wasn't any such thing as federal income tax. The way that the United States government originally got its money was from tariffs for goods that were coming in, foreign goods that were coming in. They would charge tariffs, and that's where they got their money. And then, of course, people who in government who wanted there to be things like taxes started saying that tariffs somehow financially hurt the average person. And so then they said there had to be a tax. And so somehow that got voted in or manipulated in. But that's just one example. Taxes is just one example. But imagine if we decided to unify our energies and we started to allow ourselves to come together as spiritually as a race. And we started communicating with ourselves and with the rest. Because the other thing that the dark forces want is, because they know what I just said about outside of the third dimension, all conscious beings are connected consciously. And that there's no such thing as borders and none of that stuff that they want you to believe is true. They know that. So what they want to do is keep Earth isolated. They want the consciousness of Earth to be isolated away from higher dimensional civilizations. So imagine, when I talk about this electromagnetic energy, I'm talking about energetically, spiritually. And imagine if we were to connect our consciousness with the billions and billions of civilizations that exist outside of Earth. The dark force psychopaths, they wouldn't be able to do anything. So that's what's behind the two things that I keep telling you to do. One is question your reality and then change it. Question it. Question what you believe is real, what you believe is true. And then change your reality. Go into your heart and listen to what your heart wants this world to be. Go to that inner child of yours that wants to see love everywhere and Skittles coming off of the tree and unicorns and magic and beauty. Go to that within you and decide that's the reality that you want. And then change it. And you change it with a combination of your internal environment and then your actions. And so it will have to then, at some point, you will have to stop codependently allowing destructive people, destructive actions, destructive connections. And, maybe someday I'm in no hurry to do it. As long as I have to, I'm going to keep paying my taxes until I don't think I need to anymore. I'll be able to get away with not doing it, but until then I'm going to keep doing it. But I'm going to start meditating for a day when there is no such thing as banks and taxes and governments. So that's part of questioning your reality. Question your reality on every level. Everything you've thought that your religion, what you think science is, what you think reality is. And then change it. And then I encourage you and invite you to be a part of the interdimensional meditations every Wednesday and Saturday, 8:30 p.m. And this is where we let our astral bodies take over. You know, what you're looking at here is, this is an AI picture, but that is how I've experienced myself out there when we do these meditations. I've experienced myself in other ways, but that's one of the ways that I experience myself out there. And the idea that we are that powerful when we're in our astral bodies is very empowering. So I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to any rallies. I'm not, I'm obeying the laws. I'm paying my taxes. I'm doing all the things that 3D requires of us. I pay my rent, and I do all that stuff, that normal 3D stuff. But when it comes to my interdimensional self, I am completely focused on destroying the mental, psychological, philosophical, destructive consensus. I am going to war against it when I'm out in my astral body. And nobody can stop me from doing that. And nobody can stop you from doing that. But what I've seen so far is that when we go out in our astral bodies and we do these meditations, the world changes. Whether that happens to be because we have crazy, huge, unbelievable powers that we've never allowed ourselves to believe we have when we're in our astral bodies, and our intentions and our minds have the ability to create anything, like physics might say, or that spiritual practitioners might say, or whether it's just coincidence, it doesn't matter. The end result is we feel more powerful. And when we feel more powerful and self-empowered, then you can be guaranteed you will take actions to achieve your greatest happiness and the happiness of others. So, worst case scenario, we have this great little fantasy where we question reality and change it, and we fly out into the universe. Mine has these rainbow wings and blue fire coming out of my third eye and all kinds of crazy stuff. Either that fantasy just helps me to feel better in life. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, maybe what these light beings have been telling us is true. Maybe our kids know something we don't. That if you fantasize it and believe it, it becomes true. What is the first thing that happens to little kids in our world? Once they get to be about, 5, 6 years of age, they're educated to drop all their fantasies, to grow up. But what if they know something we don't? What if every adult put their conscious effort into imagining the perfect world where there's no violence, there's no crime, there's no money, there's no governments, there's no taxes, there's nobody forcing you to do anything, because everybody is operating from the common sense of their heart, which means there's no need for any of that. We live from moment to moment. We live like a family. Everybody takes care of each other. Nobody is left behind. Nobody is isolated or rejected. Nobody's devalued. Nobody's told to grow up and stop being so stupid. Go and work your ass off like the rest of us. This is what we do when we go out. And for me, when I become this guy flying around, that's his goal. His goal is to free the spirit and the minds of all humans on this planet. So I invite you to come and do this with me every Wednesday and Saturday. And for those of you doing it, leave comments in the videos about what it was like for you, what you experienced, and again, you've heard me say it before, but if you want to support the channel, subscribe, like, comment, hit the bell button. Do the live interdimensional meditations as often as possible. Follow and like the Path of the ThunderWizard on Facebook. Share ThunderWizard YouTube video links on Facebook posts and social media. Subscribe to the ThunderWizard.com Patreon site, not for free. I know people subscribe for free. No, that won't do anything for anybody. Subscribe to the specific subscriptions that give you something. And then browse the ThunderWizard.com shop for the advanced practices. By the way, don't purchase anything on the shop from the Patreon phone app because you'll get charged more money. Do it on your browser. Okay? Don't use the app. If I had known about it, I might not have put all that stuff on it, but it's too late now. And know that I need your support. Without you, this channel wouldn't be able to function. So that's it, my friends. Those are just some of my thoughts, and we'll see what happens. I do not like this most recent communication. It makes me very uncomfortable, but we'll find out if I was right or if I was just paranoid having some strange fantasy. In any case, it'll be an interesting experiment. That's it, my friends. I love you all. Please remember you are the most powerful being that has ever existed. Please know that the entire universe was created solely for your pleasure, and that when you commit yourself to living all of the desires of your soul, every conscious being evolves, including the gods themselves, who get on their knees and worship and praise you for creating them. And I praise you and worship you, because if it weren't for you, I wouldn't exist. So thank you for bringing me into existence. Until then, my friends, I will see you all very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves.